So we're here at Momo's. My name is Leonard Dozier, and this is First Person.
Hello and welcome to First Person. First Person is all about the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We ask a random question and then we let each person have the last word. This is First Person.
My name is Leonard Dozier. I'm an actor, voice actor, singer, songwriter, and producer. Who would I like to be? Who would I like to be? You know, I think in terms of if I were to be anybody, it would be just to be myself. But I think to have the kind of career that someone like a James Earl Jones, for instance, has, where he's crossed boundaries in film, TV, theater, voiceover. And I think I've sort of modeled my career after that. And then it doesn't help that I sing and have recorded and you know, gotten some airplay on radio and had some albums out. So, you know, I think I've got a very comprehensive, you know, career from that standpoint. So, the president, because I do this impersonation of the president. That's, you know, like, you know, listen, I want to thank you for voting for me. You know, so I've done some impersonations, but no, all kidding aside, I think people really think of me as someone who inspires them. Someone who just through my career, just through fortitude and perseverance, really just, you know, I think they really look at me as a role model, and I think that's really the highest compliment you can pay me. I mean, just to be thought of as a role model, somebody that inspires. You know, it's funny, I grew up without my dad, so I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. And so not having a father figure, you know, I had sort of 3 surrogate fathers, you know, growing up, and that was, for me, Magic Johnson was one, because I wanted to be a basketball player. I never wanted to be an actor or a singer or an entertainment at all. So I was this, you know, aspiring basketball player, pretty good basketball player as well. And so Magic Johnson for me was the first dad. And then as I started to get into entertainment, Denzel Washington was someone who I gravitated to immediately. And it's not just because of the acting, it's really the way Denzel carried himself. And as fate would have it, I ended up going to the same college as Denzel. So I'm happy to sort of say that. And, you know, people like Luther Vandross from a musical standpoint. So I sort of took all of these figures in the entertainment world, and just sort of gravitated to them. And I try to not just gravitate to them just because of what they did or what their prowess, or I really tried to find people that were really good people, so that I can model myself as a man after them. So Fordham University, New York City, Lincoln Center campus. Of course, Fordham has 2 campuses, Rose Hill in the Bronx, and then Lincoln Center. And I went to Lincoln Center campus, right there in the heart of New York City. Well, as I said, I'm an actor, voice actor, singer, songwriter, producer. I'm currently starring in Joe Turner's Come and Gone, and at Open Stage in Harrisburg, I play one of the leading characters, a character named Harold Loomis. This is my 3rd Wilson play at Open Stage. I've previously done Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and The Piano Lesson, and so my roots are actually in theater. And I've done everything from some world premiere plays to classics such as August Wilson and A Raisin in the Sun. I've been really in a lot of different places doing theater. I've done some considerable film work. I actually have 2 films coming out this year. One called Dorothy of Oz, which is a big animated Hollywood film that I did with Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi, Leah Michele, Kelsey Grammer, Bernadette Peters, Martin Short, Patrick Stewart. The list goes on and on. I mean, it's just an impressive film. And then I just did a film called Turning Point that'll be out. It just premiered in London. Did this film with Todd Bridges, Ernie Hudson, Cinda Williams, Joe Estevez, Charlie Sheen's uncle, some really good people. Also another film I did called Hilo. It was just released on DVD. I starred in the film as a private investigator. Really good film, so I encourage you to to seek it out. And then, of course, in the TV world, I was on an ABC show this past spring called Fever 1793. And then in the voiceover world, I recently won an Addy Award for my work as the official voice for Boomtown Casino. And I've done voiceovers now for about a decade. And it's it's pretty interesting how I got into that. And then this summer I went on a workshop tour. So I went to about seven different cities, just teaching the art of voiceovers and the business of voiceovers, and just had a blast. So I keep busy, among all the different things that I do. And then of course on the musical side, I continue to record and write. And so yeah, going back, for me, I remember growing up, and for me, some of the things that I did early on, I think, sort of set the template for what I'm doing now. And as a high school junior, I started my own theater company, Center Play Productions, which I still have. We sort of operate sort of according to my schedule. So my schedule is pretty hectic, so you can imagine how the operations go for Center Play. But we've done some really good things. We've gone on tour. I've actually gotten into doing some really innovative things with the company. One of the things we're doing is we're doing an audiobook anthology called Lift Every Voice and Sing, Speeches and Songs of the Negro, just capturing some of the greatest speeches ever done by African Americans, and many of these speeches, when you look back to the 19th century and such, have never been recorded. So we're bringing in actors and such to do that. So just going back to my past, I really started out, as I said, as a basketball player, and then sort of, I had the moment for me was my high school principal had asked me to recite Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech for a birthday celebration at a pretty prominent church in my area. And I had never acted before, so I just knew that I didn't want to recite the speech. So I studied King for about 2 weeks, getting his mannerisms down, getting his dialect down, and lo and behold, I got him down to a science. And I'll never forget it, because it was about 800 people in the church. Former Philadelphia Mayor Wilson Goode was in attendance, and we had all these other dignitaries and such, and I got a standing ovation at the end. And there was something that happened that moment for me where I felt I was just transported to this world of show business. But I don't think that I ever gotten, but it's interesting, I never thought about it in terms of show business. In fact, my motto as an actor is I've never cared much about acting. I've always cared more about showing people glimpses of themselves. So I don't think in terms of it, I don't think in terms of show business. I just think in terms of using the gift that I have from God to transform lives and to sort of hold up a mirror to society. In the future, I think I definitely want to, it's interesting. I think I just want to continue going in the direction that I'm going each year, building upon the things that I've done the previous year, whether it be in film, whether it be in TV, whether it be in theater. Many times you talk to actors or singers or dancers or people in the arts, and they have lofty goals, which is certainly understandable. I don't know that I have any lofty goals, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I think it just speaks to who I am as a person. I just sort of allow my gift to make room for me. And I think if I can just continue to build each year, continue to touch people, continue to make my mark, whatever that is, that would be ultimately what I would want to accomplish. I think an actor, here's the thing, okay? It's just my philosophy, but I believe that there are born actors, okay? And there are trained actors. Now, listen closely. Born actors don't necessarily have to, nor should they, issue training, okay? However, there's something about a born actor that's just it's just there. It's a gift from God. It's there. It's a calling. It's that. There are many people who may not be gifted with the ability to act, but through training and through just pure determination and working hard, they develop the skills to be an actor. So that's the premise, and I think trying to decide where you are, and you got to be honest with yourself. A born actor is somebody who just feels life. Has nothing to do with stage, has nothing to do with film, has nothing to do with the medium. A born actor just feels life, just feels. So if you feel life, you're probably a born actor. If you try to go in another direction and you just get called back, you're probably a born actor, probably. Trained actors, you kind of go through life, you kind of maybe have an interest, you don't have the same, you may not be blessed with a good voice or good looks or whatever, but you just have an interest and you seek training. But I think an actor, more than anything, is someone who actually can express their soul in a way so that it's visible and felt. Because the soul is something, when you talk about the soul, it's intangible. So actors find a way to make it tangible. They find a way to make the soul tangible. To do. It was around age 14. Like I said, I was an aspiring basketball player. Basketball was my life. I wanted to be like the next Magic Johnson. In fact, my nickname was Magic. So basketball was life. But it's really weird. I was a sophomore in high school, and I was sitting on the bench during a game, just getting a rest, getting a breather. And there was something that came over me, and it's hard to describe it. When I play it back in my mind, it's just hard to describe it. But there was something that came over me, and it was just like, your days are up with this. And I don't know why I felt that. You're talking about somebody who was religious about basketball, who was, that was my life. But it was just something I felt like my days are up. And I ended up leaving the basketball team. Coincidentally, the principal of my high school, I was a very good student, very popular student, had asked me to recite Dr. King's speech at a birthday commemoration for him. And that for me, it went over so well that I was booked by nearly every church in the community. So to do the speech. And I knew then that I wanted to go further in the acting profession. Now I didn't come from a lot of money, so that was one of the tricks, and I wanted to take acting classes. We had a pretty renowned school in the area, a school called West Baron Ryan. The Ryan is an attachment onto the West Baron, which is out of New York City, which originated out of New York City. And so I wanted to take classes there, but I couldn't afford it. So my principal actually petitioned the Board of Education to pay for my acting classes. So I ended up taking classes in commercial technique. So I learned to do commercials, and I learned film. And then I got involved with very, 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 very good community theater called Showmakers. And they did a lot of, even though they're a community theater, it was really fantastic because they did a lot of professional work. It was just great actors to work with. And I got my first, little bit part in a play called Mr. Roberts, which was a classic movie. And then, the next year, I was cast as a supporting actor in A Few Good Men. And I remember when it was time for me to start applying to colleges, I asked the director to write a recommendation for me. And her experience is vast, and she's quite accomplished. And she said, in her recommendation, she said, Leonard's performance in A Few Good Men was one of the finest performances I've ever seen in my 40 years in theater. And I'm a kid, mind you. I'm still a kid, and I knew. Talk about that sense of knowing that you're in the right place. I knew then that, yeah, this was what I was meant to do. I think I took it seriously once I started taking acting classes. I don't think it registered with me until to that moment. And then I got cast in a community college put on a theater production, and I was the only high school kid that got a part. I played Renfield in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is totally against my type. But it was just great to play a character like that and to excel with these college students and adult professionals, and so I had kind of found this mark as a kid, and I think for me that spoke volumes. And though I had a lot of development still and grooming still, that told me, man, I was born with something that because I was just born with something that was just there. My first professional job, I just got into Fordham University, and I went to an audition, which I did a lot. Here's the thing: I graduated #2 in my high school class. I got to college, and all of a sudden became one of the worst students in America. And part of the reason is that I felt as though I got all the education I needed, and New York for me, Fordham University for me was This is more about getting an education in my profession. This is more about getting a social education. So, my first job was actually a touring production. Believe it or not, the part that I actually got cast as was a guy that was older than myself, because I could play older, and I ended up turning it down because it would have taken me away from school. But that was my first job, 18 years old. You know, first professional job offer, and though I didn't take it, you know, it was my first offer, and then shortly after that, I got a record deal. A major record deal with a company that was a subsidiary of Polygram. Polygram now is Universal, but Polygram used to host labels such as Motown, Island, Def Jam. Many of these labels are still around, but of course they're now under the Universal umbrella. But I was under a company that was under Polygram, so I got my first record deal also while I was in college. So I got some really good professional things happening very early for me. You know, it's interesting because music was probably my thing. Acting's my first love, okay? But music somehow found a way to creep in there. It found a way to creep in there, and I would say literally from that time that I got the record deal until about the age of 25, 26, I spent that time doing music. I wasn't really doing any acting. It was all about music. It was all about, you know, and the record deal I got had fizzled because the merger took place. So Polygram became Universal, the company that I had my deal with, lost their deal, I lost my deal. So I was without a deal, only for a short time. I then got a deal with an independent label that was run by the uncle of Rodney Jerkins, who, you know, was a mega producer. His uncle ran an independent label that I was signed to. And so I spent a good 6-7 years doing music, writing, recording. I'm an ASCAP songwriter, have been for many years. And I'm still involved in the music side of things. Not nearly as much. I just had a song called This Thanksgiving that I wrote and produced that got airplay around the world this past holiday season. So, you know, my manager sent me the reports of the stations that were playing it. So it was really nice to get that, to have that. So I'm still pretty active on the recording and music side of things. I just don't do it nearly as much anymore. The music business has changed dramatically. And if you know anything about the music business, since 2000, it's really been in the red. So I think I sort of picked a good time to sort of go away from it, you know. But you know, music's still a good part of me. Yeah, very much so. I am from a little town called Pleasantville, New Jersey. It's about 5 to 7 minutes outside of Atlantic City, one of the gambling capitals of the world. Born and raised in Pleasantville, spent much of my life there. Southern New Jersey, not Pleasantville necessarily, but Southern New Jersey is still home for me. And other than the time that I went away to go to school at Fordham, I've lived in Southern New Jersey. Now, I've lived a lot of places just because of my career. My career takes me a little bit of everywhere, but Southern New Jersey is where I call home. Oh man, I so appreciate that question, because in about 5 years, I am looking to settle in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now you're probably saying, Minneapolis, Minnesota? I mean, an actor? I mean, LA, New York, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Well, Minneapolis is one of the most beautiful cities in America. And I'm a cold weather guy. I'm a winter baby. I love cold weather. So Minneapolis is as cold as it gets. And you talk about snow. Snow is a way of life in Minneapolis. And what's interesting about Minneapolis is it's very artsy. It's surprisingly artsy. It's a good mix of people and cultures, and I just am fascinated by it. And in about 5 to 6 years, when my 2 daughters graduate high school and are making their way in the world, I am planning to settle in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In fact, it wouldn't be Minneapolis, because they still don't understand for the life of them why I want to actually settle in Minneapolis. Most people, you know, look at me with sort of the raised eyebrow kind of thing, and when I say Minneapolis, but yeah, it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yeah. talent aside, and I think we have a lot of talented people. Certainly, when you're talking about entertainment, you're going to get your myriad of talented singers or actors or dancers or what have you. But I think I'm somebody to be interested in and follow just because of the way I go about delving into this career of entertainment, the way I go about it. And it's interesting because I say I'm someone to follow, not for the sake of following me per se, but following the impact that I have on people's lives. And I think that that's where I try to draw influence, both to and from. That's really important to me. So following me is about following the impact I have. I had a voiceover workshop recently, and a guy came and his 6-year-old kid has cerebral palsy, and he reads bedtime stories to him. And he simply came to my workshop because he wanted to learn how to read in different character voices to his son. And that was just a touching moment for me. It's touching for me after a show to be able to sign somebody's program and for them to say, hey, and my kid wants to get into this, what should I tell them? And I tell them, listen, rather than have me tell you, give you a sound bite here that you can't remember, it's better for me to tell you to contact me via my website. Tell your son, tell your kid, your son, your daughter to contact me via my website, and we can have some real dialogue. So follow me if you just want to be inspired, and not just in terms of entertainment, but just in terms of living life. I've had some real challenges. I'm somebody that is a father of 2 girls. Both of my girls are in my custody. My oldest daughter lost her mother a couple of years ago at age 31. So it was a very pivotal time for me because it was that real point in my life where I had to decide, man, what's really important now? And for my daughter to say, no, Daddy, you keep going. That's a big deal, and I don't take that lightly. So I'm all about just impacting people. And yes, you're going to see the talent when you see me on TV or film or on stage or hear me on a song. But the talent, thank God, is there. But I think it's more than that. It's about who I am as a person, what I'm trying to say to the world at large. And I think that's all the reason, I think, to follow somebody like me. Number one, you have to go into acting, and sometimes I do career days where I go into schools and I speak to kids, so I do this a lot. And I tell kids, listen, you only go into a career like acting if you feel called, you feel there's something pulling you to do it. It can't be, I see, Denzel Washington, or I see, some actor, some Hollywood actor, and they're famous and they're rich and they got this and they got that. And, it can't be that. You have to really love it. And one of the things it's funny because one of the things I do this thing when I'm talking to kids and I tell them, I say, listen, everybody that is prepared to actually be broke and maybe eat oodles and noodles for dinner, on a regular basis, all you guys raise your hands. And not many raise their hands. And I tell them, I said, well, I tell you what, think about another career. Think about another career, because you're probably, in all likelihood, going to start off making no money. So that's the first thing. You got to do it because you love it. Plain and simply, you've got to do it because you love it. Secondly, you should have some mission about being an actor. There should be some platform that you have. What do I mean by that? For me, as I said, my motto as an actor is I've never cared much about acting. I've always cared more about showing people glimpses of themselves. And that's my motto as an actor. So anytime, whether I'm on stage or in front of a camera, there's no thought about acting. I really don't like to think of the term acting at all, because I feel like I'm sort of that mirror to society in the characters that I play. I'm an artist, and that's the key. Think of yourself as an artist. If you feel like as an artist you want to paint a picture for people, you want to say something to the world at large, by all means, go get them. Norah Jones came out, with smooth jazz, taking you back to like days right now, because now more than ever you don't need a record company, because because now you can produce a single, get it on iTunes, get it on Rhapsody, eMusic. So all of the digital distribution outlets, you can get your music out there. So you really don't need a label. Now, you know, independent artists are really experiencing this sort of renaissance, if you will. But here's the problem. There's so much music now that it's really hard to differentiate yourself. It's really hard to make your mark because there's so much music. And I'm just one of those people that feel that the music industry suffered largely because the industry started to copy. They started to create, they had this factory mentality. You know, Beyonce's hot, so let's find the next Beyonce. Let's find not just the next Beyonce, let's find 10 other ones that'll be like her and be successful. Nicki Minaj is hot, so let's find 10 others like her. You know, and that's not a good formula. And if you go back, you know, historically speaking, whether it be in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, when you heard artists on the radio, when you heard of Stevie Wonder, you knew that's Stevie Wonder. You know, if you heard of Gladys Knight, you know that's Gladys Knight. If you heard of Frank Sinatra, you knew that's Sinatra. If you heard the Beatles, you knew that's the Beatles. Now, if you listen to radio, you can't tell. You know, you listen to, you have to really do a double take. You know, I remember in the late 90s when I was really going hard with the music thing, there were about, and I'm not going to, you know, out of respect, I'm not going to name these artists, but there's probably like 10 guys that sounded the same to me. You know, and they were, you know, talented brothers doing their thing, but to me, I'm like, I can't tell them apart. So, and that to me is a bad recipe. Now, what is the byproduct of that? People say, you know what? This whole factory mentality is going to get me a CD where it's only 1 or 2 songs that are good. So why am I going to buy the CD? Why don't I get it from my cousin Fred, get him to burn me a CD? Why don't I get somebody to download it? Nowadays, why don't I just download it off YouTube? So nobody can sell anything. So it's hard to get into the music business, but you get into it if you feel, again, that there's a passion that you have for it, there's something that you want to say. I think anybody going into the music business now should really be compelled to go in with the mindset to try to transform it in some way. And it doesn't have to be a big way. You don't have to be some galvanizing pioneer, but it just needs to be, how can I come into business just transforming it? And I think the most important thing is go into the music business being yourself. That's the key. Go in being yourself, because I remember coming up at a time where it was all about, well, you know, this is selling right now, and you know, you need to do this. You need to, you know, change your music to reflect this. Just be you. Just be you. Norah Jones came out, you know, with smooth jazz, you know, taking you back to like the 60s and 70s, and sold 18 million copies. So there's a real lesson to just being yourself. Just be yourself. Why Harrisburg? Well, you know, it's interesting. This is my 3rd winter here, so I spent the last 3 winters here in Harrisburg. I love it. It's become really a second home to me. I've got to know a good amount of people, not just professionals that I work with, but just people in the community. So it's really nice. It feels like a second home. But interestingly enough, 3 years ago, when I was here for the piano lesson, my first time here, the director at Open Stage came to Philadelphia to hold auditions for the role I played of Boy Willie. And it was a nice turnout, and I didn't know whether I would get the part or not, but I got the call the next day from him, and letting me know that I had gotten the part. And so that was my first year here. And then I've been back here the last 2 years, and Harrisburg is an interesting city because it's, you know, of course it's the state capital, and there's that component, but then you have sort of this, I mean, I've seen in my time here this artistic rebirth. I mean, there are films being done here now. There's a good amount of theater. You know, there's some real life and some real vitality to Harrisburg. You know, it's small city. It's a very small city. But it also has a good mix of people, and so it makes for an interesting place. And you know, as I said, I've enjoyed it. So I couldn't, to be honest with you, I couldn't imagine being somewhere else. you know, in the wintertime, because I've been here the past three winters. Well, the easiest way to get in contact with me is via my website, which is leonarddozier.com. leonarddozier.com. Also, you can contact me via my management, which is T Marquise Entertainment, and that's tmarquise.com. TMARQUISE.com. My manager is a guy named Robert Williams. He's fantastic. He's very, very good at getting back to people. Or my agent or agency. I'm represented by a pretty large agency, Buchwald and Associates. They're out of New York City, and it's buchwald.com. You know, August Wilson is an interesting writer. He's one of our foremost writers for a very good reason. Part of that reason is that with Wilson, it is everything he says and writes is totally unplugged. He speaks about the African American experience in a way that is just in your face. He teaches, he preaches. You know, and as writers, many times you're taught, you know, don't preach, don't proselytize, you know, and he does. I mean, so he preaches and he teaches, and I think when you're playing an August Wilson character, I think the key thing with playing any August Wilson character is to really understand what Wilson is trying to say. So it's not just about who you're playing as a character and what that character's objective is and that through line is for that character. It's also what is Wilson trying to say at large, because you really have the job as an actor in an August Wilson piece of really telling this man's story, and you do that in any other play. But the way Wilson writes, he writes in such a provocative way that if you're not comfortable with you as a person and as an actor, it's very difficult to tell his story. So for me, it always sort of reverts back to what is Wilson trying to say. And then that allows me to sort of take in what he's trying to say, take in the character, take in the history, take in the message. Because I think really when you're playing an August Wilson character, you have to fully embrace the message. There is no half-stepping. You know, you have to fully allow yourself to say, I support this message. You know, if you can sort of imagine, it's kind of almost, it's almost like a Republican saying, I have to adopt the message of a Democrat. You know, that's what you have to do essentially with an August Wilson piece, even if that's something, even if his way of writing and what he's saying is not something you agree with. I think you have to fully embrace it. You have to fully allow yourself to embrace it and live it.
You've been asked by Hollywood to come up with a blockbuster film that you would be the star of. They don't want it to be anything that you're currently working on. They want you to come up with something that's their baby. But it's going to be a Leonard Dozier film, written, produced, and starring you. But they need an idea right now. Where do you start to think about what to tell them?
Create a really artsy film with me as a director, with getting them to think outside the box. Okay, that's number one. Getting them to think outside the box. And I think one of the things that I would do is I think we got to go back to a place in film where we really try to provoke thought, change, action, where we transform lives, where we try to make a statement. And I'm not saying it has to be you know, a political based film or has to be something that sort of serves a platform in any capacity, but we have to get to a point of being artists again. And I think we're getting away from being artists to just being businessmen. And I think if we can find a way to sort of amalgamate the two, then we got something. So I think my idea would be, let's do a film that for me, let's get maybe the top four black stars, the top 5 white stars, I'm sorry. Top 4 white stars, top 4 black stars. Let's start there. So we got some major star power. Now, that's going to command that audience that we need from both sides of the coin. Now we need to talk story. And when it comes to talking story, I think one of the things that we can do is we can go back and remake a film. So we can go back and do a remake, you know, and you know, but we got to find now. The trick in doing that is not to necessarily, because mine, we got 4 heavyweight African American actors, including myself. I'll be the 5th. And then we got, you know, 4 white actors or so, or, you know, it could be 4 Hispanic actors, it doesn't matter. The key is to sort of mix up races and ethnicities so that we have this sort of culturally diverse film, so we can actually bring in the largest audience possible. And then let's go back and remake a film. Let's go back and remake a French Connection. You know, with these actors. Let's go back but do it in a way that's really artsy, and not do it in a way that's business minded. Let's do it in a way, because the business takes care of itself just based on the fact that you have these heavyweights, that you have this star power. The business takes care of itself. So now you can actually find a way to create a really artsy film with me as a director. Ooh, that's the idea. One of my favorites, 12 Angry Men. Now, you know, it's interesting. That's been done in the late 90s. They did a remake of 12 Angry Men, and they had Courtney B. Vance, Michael T. Williamson, Jack Lemmon, Tony Danza. So they did sort of do this, but I'm talking about on a larger scale. So let's just say, you know, I'm the director. You know, I've got Denzel Washington. I've got Lawrence Fishburne. I've got Will Smith. I've got Morgan Freeman. I've got Bradley Cooper. I've got Robert De Niro. I've got Harrison Ford. You know, I've got Tom Cruise. Okay, so I've got a nice mix. You know. Different age ranges, different generations, different audiences. Now let's just go back and find a film that we can remake. But let's do it in an artsy way, in a provocative way, and let's just make a good film. I want to say first and foremost a healthy and hearty thank you to First Person, and I want to speak, you know, this, you know, as an actor, as an entertainer, as a singer, as a writer, as a producer. I always want to be encouraging to those that are trying to go forth in the field. And again, this is a field that you really have to go into with all of your heart, all of the passion that you can muster, and just a lot of love. And if you do that, let that be the start. You know, I have a saying that goes, you know, you don't worry about the end, you just worry about the means. And I think that also equates to just enjoying the journey and not worrying about the destination. Well, if you allow yourself to do that as an artist, as an actor, as a dancer, as a singer, as a writer, as a director, as a producer, what have you, if you allow yourself to do that, that's a good start. That's a good start. And I'm actually going to leave you guys with a beautiful song that I wrote called Superman, just a little bit of it. And since we're in this age of superheroes, you know, Batman, Superman, Catwoman, and all these wonderful superheroes, this song is called Superman, and a little bit different than you might think, but it goes,
as a little boy, I loved Superman. I wanted to be him, yeah. I would take a toy and with my hand toss it to the wind, and I'd walk away. I knew one day I would fly side by side with the girl whose heart I broke. Paint the sky, take a ride, sit on a cloud and just float. Save her life. No more guys trying to hurt my baby. I'm here to stay forever.
thank you, First Person.
That's it. That's the last word.